Hey girl, Marissa here. You are listening to the Codependent Dummy podcast. As a young woman, you have been raised, reinforced, and rewarded for putting the needs of others above your own. Now, in your 20s, you're finding yourself exhausted, exasperated, and enveloped in shit relationships, especially the one you have with yourself. Codependency is a way of being where we put the feelings, wants, and needs of others above our own in an unconscious attempt to meet our own feelings, wants, and needs. Sorry to break it to you, sis, but that is not sustainable. This podcast is to help you undo all that so you can stop playing small and start taking up space, you dummy. Let's get to it. I'm just a girl. I'm just a girl in the world. That's all that you'll let me be. Hey girl, hey. It's me, your hostess, mostess, Marissa, and that's me serenading you with a short lyric from No Doubt's song, Just a Girl. If you haven't listened to it, please do. I will include a link in the show notes. I am just a girl, and you are just a girl. That's all that they will let us be. In this episode, we are going to talk about how men mansplained to me throughout my life and how that contributed to my codependency. I'll begin by defining a few terms, then share a 15th century poem, English poem, and discuss how and why a male's perspective on our behavior as codependents is not always accurate, true, or helpful. I'm going to introduce a couple terms, but one of them especially. Some of you may know it. I hope for the rest of you that learning about it, I know that those, okay, we'll start this sentence over. I am going to introduce a term that, though some of you may know it, I hope the rest of you who don't can learn about it, and it will give you a new lens to perceive the world. I came across the word recently, and in all my years of study, I can't recall having read it sooner. I'm sure I read it. I'm sure I read it when I was in college, but I don't know. I was partying a lot. So I came across it recently, and it has been life-changing. And I hope it's as life-changing for you as it has been for me. Before all that, let's have a brief check-in. Let's take some deep breaths. Let's do 2. I want you to put your hands together. Rub your hands together. Create some heat. And I want you to wrap yourself, massage your shoulders a little bit, biceps, your triceps, your forearms. And let's do some, put maybe 2 fingers on the sides of your temples on your forehead. Just do some circles, girl, and rotate. Oh, that feels good, right? And just gonna tap your brow bone and some nice temple rubs. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And So that's, just grounding, tuning into our bodies. With your emotions, I'm curious, how are you feeling? How are you feeling, baby girl? How is your September starting out? For those of you celebrating Labor Day, happy Labor Day. Is there anything gnawing at you? Gnawing as in persistently worrying or distressing. Checking in on my part, I am trying to book more guests, and hot damn, it's just been me the past couple of weeks. So tune in for more guest interviews soon. I have a couple lined up, and if you have any suggestions, if you think your therapist would be great, encourage your therapist to reach out. If, maybe a coach, yoga instructor, women's health doctors, a doula, those who tend to treat and focus on women, codependency, they would be great. They are welcomed. And I do apologize. The episodes have been so long. I sit down to record, I end the recording, and I have the thought, nice, a good short episode, good, maybe 45-minute episode. And then I look and it's like an hour and 5 minutes, an hour and 7 minutes. So I appreciate your patience and commitment. And some of these ideas, they take time to discuss, and also time flies when I'm having fun talking about these aspects. So a couple things I want to acknowledge. This is my check-in. So September 1st, it was my parents' 49th wedding anniversary. 49 years. So applause for mom and dad. When I called them, my mom made a joke about an annulment, and I reminded her and my dad that when they reach 50, the Pope, the Catholic Pope, will give them a papal blessing. So here I am rooting for a papal blessing, and mom's joking about an annulment, but I wish them a happy 50th year, 49th year. Here's to 50. Also, September is my spirit month. I'm curious if you already know what your spirit month is, or having heard me just say that, can you identify one? I think it was a couple years ago, I noticed everything, not everything, but huge, exciting, life-changing things tend to happen for me in September. It's my parents' anniversary. It's exciting. I'm pretty sure I was conceived in September because I'm a May baby. I got licensed as a therapist in September. I bought my first big girl car a couple years ago now in September. I purchased my condo in the month of September. And I even won the podcast course that led me to launching this podcast in September. I just verified that on Google. I was like, what was that conference that I won? It was in September. Of course it was in September. So happy Spirit Month to me. If you don't have a Spirit Month, I encourage you to take time to reflect and find yours, because it's just an exciting time. It is an exciting time. I wonder, we're only a couple of days in, so no big wins yet, but it is. I'm excited. I'm excited for September. Checking complete. So let's shift to a few terms I want to define for this episode using the help of Polly Young Eisendrath and Florence Weideman and from their book, Female Authority, Empowering Women Through Psychotherapy. Oh, bless me. This was published in 1987, and it has been one of my favorite reads this summer. It sounds very appealing to everyone, and also it's very niche content specifically for therapists. So I sense Polly Young Eisendrath, she's written some other books that might be more appealing and approachable. But if you're a therapist wanting to empower your female clients, I recommend Female Authority. So I have 4 terms to define, 2 from Google and 2 with help of this book. First term to define, mansplain. This is typically of a man where he explains something to someone, typically a woman, in a manner regarded as condescending and patronizing. I'm curious what comes up for you as I say that. And for me, I know that I've talked about boundary violations in the past, specifically from men towards me. I've discussed being in places I don't really want to be and staying there. And throughout my relationship with my husband, sometimes I will say, I don't want to go to this, but I feel bad. I feel guilty. I'm worried they're going to reject me if I don't go. And very simply, he's like, you don't have to go to that. Don't go to that. Okay. We need to work through this. So just some mansplain. That's just, so easy for him. And why? Why is that easy for him? Well, let's discuss the second term, patriarchy, which is defined as a system of society or government in which men hold the power and women are largely excluded from it. In their book, Young Eisendrath and Weideman, they discuss how men have the advantage in decision-making influence, in social status, and power over material resources. Men are often socialized to feel and behave authoritatively. They continue on that in our society, we are constantly and everywhere subjected to the tacit assumption that males are superior. Implicitly and explicitly, Male norms have become our social standards for health, mental health, leadership, relationships, and personal autonomy. They conclude, describing the impact of patriarchy, that whether or not we as individuals accept these standards, we live in a society that organizes itself collectively according to them, and we are influenced by them. It's pervasive. It's all the time. It's like smog. You can't see it, but you're breathing it in, and it's negatively impacting your lungs and your nervous system all the time. That's patriarchy. I remember my mom, she had a friend who, the woman, she recalled this story where she was older, I don't know, let's say she's in her 50s or 60s, and she goes to the bank to update something on her shared bank account between her and her husband. She goes in and she say, "Hi, I'd like to update this account." And they said, "Oh, okay, your husband has to be here for us to move forward." And she's like, "Oh, okay." So she goes and gets her husband. They come back to the bank, and she decided to run an experiment. And she's like, "You go, babe. You go and say you want to update our joint account, and let's see what happens." And he went in. He said, "I'd like to update my joint account with my wife." She's like, like spying, like peeking. And they were like, "Yes, sir, come this way." They didn't say, "Oh, your wife needs to be here," or "Go get your wife," or "Where is your wife?" Interesting, very interesting. That's an example of patriarchy. Privilege. Male privilege. Third term today, androcentrism, which means focus or centered around men. Something is focused or centered around men. Or dominated by or emphasizing masculine interests or a masculine point of view. Androcentrism is seeing the world. Excuse me, I had a little LaCroix, crack, and now it's just coming up. Seeing the world from the male's perspective. In their book, Young Eisendrath and Weidemann describe how much of the current psychological reasoning about individuals, especially women, is founded on androcentric thinking. What the fuck does that even mean, Marissa? It means that when we look at a woman who's depressed, when we look at a woman who is anxious, when we look at a woman who is codependent, we perceive her through an androcentric lens. We perceive her through a male lens. And we describe what's happening for her without really, truly, sincerely taking into consideration her female gender, her female role in her family and her culture. And we don't take into consideration that we're in a fucking patriarchy where women are second-class citizens. So maybe that's contributing to her depression. Maybe that's contributing to her anxiety. Maybe that's contributing to her codependency, right? Androcentrism results in mistaken assumptions and misleading questions about women. When we make assumptions about women, this is from the book, Female Authority, when we make assumptions about women based on men's experience of themselves or their relationships with women, we are reasoning androcentrically. It's not good, okay? For example, in Freud's psychodynamic theory, psychoanalytic, sorry, not psychodynamic, he was psychoanalyst. Freud proposed that little girls and women had, quote, penis envy, end quote, where we, I'm including myself as a little girl, woman, we envy little boys and men who have penises. That's an androcentric view. That is Freud's male view of little girls wanting penises. And what he's missing potentially is perhaps it's not the penis that the girls want. It's not a penis. I don't want a penis, but it's the privilege. It's the power. It's the pampering that little boys and men seem to receive. There's a quote, I don't know who this is by, but it says, mothers love their sons and raise their daughters. That's a quote. And I can see why that's a quote, because I want to be loved. I want privilege. I want power. And it's not the penis that we envy. It's those other things. And, you know, in my own life, while I was writing this, most mornings I go walking and running in the morning. And when I go walking and running, I have pepper spray. I have a hiking pole to go hiking with, but I don't use it for hiking. I literally carry it as a bat and as a signal to say, don't fuck with me, motherfuckers. And I pack stuff in my little fanny pack, and I have everything all organized lest I get attacked. And I have been attacked. I've shared about that, I believe, in a previous episode. My husband has never carried pepper spray. In the 34 years he has resided on this planet, he has never been in a situation where he was like, oh, I forgot my pepper spray. It's dark, I'm alone, I'm vulnerable. He doesn't walk with a walking or hiking stick. He just goes out. And I envy that privilege. He doesn't put makeup on every morning. He doesn't have to take, an extra 30-ish minutes to get ready. He has 3.5 more hours every week. I envy that. I envy it. And then, people are like, oh, Marissa, like you don't have to wear makeup. You don't have to walk with a stick. Just go without. And it's like, that's an androcentric piece of advice, you shithead. Androcentric, viewing the world through a male perspective. We do it all the time. Fourth term to define personal authority. This is from the book. It is the ability to validate one's own thoughts and actions as good and true. It develops gradually as others recognize and communicate the value of one's ideas and contributions, both for the family and for the larger social group. A synonym is sovereignty. I don't have the answer yet for how to cultivate personal authority as young women who weren't able to develop it gradually when we were younger. However, my sense is that by starting to become conscious of the contribution of mansplaining, patriarchy, and androcentrism to our codependent ways is a start. I'd now like you to relax, sit back, and enjoy this 15th century poem. It's a tale of Sir Gawain and the Lady Ragnell, which my dad first told me and my sisters and my friends when we were in Girl Scouts, sleeping around a camping fire and going to bed under the stars. This was one of his favorite stories to tell. And just to give credit, this is from storiesToGrowBy.org. And it's up online everywhere, so I don't think I'm breaking any copyright rules. So one day, King Arthur was hunting in the Inglewood Forest with his men. All of a sudden, in the distance, a deer stepped into view. "Hold still, everyone," said the king. "I'll stalk this deer myself." Holding his bow in one hand and his last arrow over his shoulder, the king crept upon the deer. Then he slayed the deer with one shot. As the animal fell, a tall figure stepped from the shadows. "How lucky for me that we meet this way, with your arrow released from your hand," boomed the voice of a strong and mighty knight. "King Arthur, for many a year you have done me wrong, and now it is time for me to quiet you." "Sir Gromer," said King Arthur, and he thought to himself, "I meet my old enemy here in the woods with no weapon to defend me. Where are my men?" Thinking quickly, the king said, "To slay me here, armed as you are, and I clothed but in my greens, would bring you no honor. All the knights will refuse to sit by you, and shame will follow you evermore. I'll grant you anything, name it, land or gold, to spare my life." "There is no land or gold that I desire," said Sir Gromer. "However, I will get what I seek in an honorable way. I'll give you a chance to solve a riddle. 1 year and a day from now, you must appear before me, here in the woods as you are, without friends to come with you and with no weapon. If at that time you are unable to solve the riddle, no man will object that I will take your life. But if you answer the riddle correctly, there will be no battle. You must swear on your honor that you will return in 1 year and a day, as I have said." "Lo, I agree," said the king. "What is the riddle?" Need some water. Let's do a little water break. Keep it on your toes. "You must tell me, what is it that women desire most above all else?" "I assure you," said King Arthur, "as I am the true king, that I will come again in 1 year and a day and bring you the answer that you seek." And so Sir Gromer left. The king blew his bugle, and his hunting companions found him with the slain deer at his feet. Yet, instead than finding their ruler in good spirits, as they would expect, his companions saw heaviness in their king's face. They realized some trouble must have come about. But when they asked him what could be the matter, he did not say. Only his nephew, the gentle knight, Sir Gawain, did King Arthur share what had really taken place. "Sir, be of good cheer," said the youthful knight, after he heard full through the curious demand of Sir Gromer. "Let's ready your horse. Together we will ride through country after country. Wherever we go, we will ask every man and woman for the correct answer. We are bound to find it before long." So the king and his nephew Sir Gawain rode away. Everywhere they inquired, "What is it that women desire above all else?" All the people who answered were certain their answer was correct, yet each answer was different. Some said women loved best to be well adorned. Others said they wanted a life free of scorn. Some said women want a husband who is handsome and strong. Others that they want a man who will not prove them wrong. And so King Arthur and Sir Gawain collected many an answer, yet none that seemed right. They returned home to sort it all out, since only a month remained. King Arthur decided to return to the Inglewood Forest. Perhaps he could make sense of it there. While riding his horse along the forest trail, as foul a lady as King Arthur ever saw rode up to him. She was covered with gold and many a precious stone, but that could not cover her red face, her runny nose, mouth that was entirely too wide, teeth that were yellow and hanging. Her eyes were bleary, her neck too long, and she was shaped like a barrel. "Good day, King Arthur," said she. "Think of me what you will, but your life is in my hands." "What do you mean?" said King Arthur. "Of all the answers you've been told," said the loathsome lady, "none of them will help you. Only I know the correct answer. Grant me but one thing, Sir King, and I shall tell it to you. But if not, you will face Sir Gromer, and no doubt you shall lose your head." "You know Sir Gromer?" said King Arthur. "He is known," said the vile lady, "and he has bragged to many that he has you all but conquered. What Sir Gromer does not know, however, is that I, and only I, have the answer that you seek." "Tell me the one thing you seek from me," said the king. "If I can grant it, I will." "Very well," she said. "There is a certain knight I wish to wed. His name is Sir Gawain. Either I marry the knight Sir Gawain, or you must lose your head." "Alas," the king thought to himself, "woe is me, that I should cause Gawain, my dear nephew, to thus be wed." He said aloud, "Then we must part, lady. But do tell me, before I go, what is your name?" "Sir King, I am the Lady Ragnell." And so they parted. The king returned to his castle, where he found his nephew, Sir Gawain. The king told him everything, except the demand of the loathsome lady to marry Sir Gawain. King Arthur said instead that the Lady Ragnell would share the secret for the promise of a husband. "Is that all?" said Sir Gawain. "Then I will marry her, and marry her again. For you are my king and my liege. To save your life, my lord, I will do whatever I can, or I would be a false and great coward. But the promise of his nephew, and since the next day was the very day the king was to meet Sir Gromer in the woods, the king rode with haste to the Inglewood forest, to the spot where he had met the Lady Ragnell. But if she wasn't there, he worried, then the loathsome lady rode up to him. The king told her that her request would be granted, and she could marry the knight Sir Gawain. Therefore, tell me quickly, my lady, the answer to the riddle. Sir, said the Lady Ragnell, now you will know what it is that women desire above all else. Some men say we desire to be beautiful, or that we desire attentions from many men, or that we desire to be married well. Thus, these men do not know the truth. What we desire above all else is to have sovereignty, to rule our lives as we see fit, to not be beholden to another. Go forth, Sir King, for now your life is assured. The king rode as fast as he could to the spot where he had met Sir Gromer. He started by giving one of the answers he had been given earlier, then another, and yet another. To each one, Sir Gromer shook his head with glee. Nay, nay, said Sir Gromer, you are as good as a dead man prepared to bleed. Abide, Sir Gromer, King Arthur said. I have one answer left. Very well then, said Sir Gromer, or else, so help me, your death will be upon you. Now here it is, said the king. Above all else, women desire sovereignty, to rule their lives as they see fit. And who has told you this? Roared Sir Gromer. No doubt it was my sister, the Lady Ragnell. May she burn on fire. Yet now I am compelled to release you. So go. Farewell, said King Arthur, and he quickly turned around his horse. Then he sped to the Lady Ragnell. He must bring her back to the castle for the wedding. Yet so unpleasant was the prospect of holding a public wedding with such a bride that he told her the ceremony would take place in the morning, knowing that meant there would be a few guests or even none to attend, and his nephew Sir Gawain would not have to suffer the public embarrassment of wedding such a loathsome lady. But the Lady Ragnell would not allow. Nay, Sir King, she said firmly, openly I must wed, with a full wedding feast for dinner, and guests aplenty in attendance. After the marriage ceremony, when all were gathered for the wedding feast, the Lady Ragnell carefully watched her groom. Was he disgusted by her? Would he turn his back and ignore her? Strangely, this he did not do. The knight behaved as if he cherished his hideous bride. Later that night, in their wedding chambers, the Lady Ragnell said, Sir Gawain, now that we have wed, give me a kiss. If I were young and beautiful looking, you know very well you would not delay. I urge you to do this right now. Sir Gawain said, I will at once, that and more. As he sped around to kiss his bride, he saw before him not the loathsome lady he had married, but the fairest creature he ever did see. Ay, he cried out, what magic is this? Are you a witch? I am your wife, she said, that and securely. Ah, lady, then I must not be in my right mind, said the confused Sir Gawain. Pardon me for saying so. Earlier today you were the foulest sight a man ever did see. and now it seems none is more fortunate than I to have you as my bride. And he rushed into her arms, giving her many kisses. Sir, she said, pulling away for a moment, there's more you must know. Several years ago, I was deformed by enchantment, by my brother, the terrible Sir Gromer. The way you see me now, this appearance cannot stay. You have a choice. You need to choose whether you will have me in my natural form as you see me now, by night, and hideous as you have seen me before, by day. Or have me in my natural form by day and hideous at night. With the enchantment, it cannot be both. What do you choose? Alas, said Gawain, the choice is hard. To be with you as you are now at night, but not any more. That would grieve my heart. But if by day you were as you seem now, then the nights would be hard. So I must put the choice in your own hands. Whatever you choose, as your husband, that choice will be mine as well. Mercy, courteous knight, she said. Of all earthly knights, I am truly lucky you are the one who ended up as my husband, for now the evil enchantment is released completely. I can stay in my natural form both day and night, for the only thing that could release me from Gromer's spell was if a husband granted me, of his own free will, sovereignty to choose what I wish for myself. And now, Sir Knight, courteous Sir Gawain, you have done just that. You have granted me sovereignty, that which every woman wants above all else. Kiss me, Sir Knight. Ay, said Sir Gawain, that I am glad to do. And so the Lady Ragnell could stay in her natural form both day and night, and she and Sir Gawain, the nephew of King Arthur, lived happily ever after. So I'm curious what came up for you while I read this tale. And yeah, it does, it's like he is still the hero, so the guy still saves the day, but it's his support of her decision that saves the day. And it all hung on him giving her ultimate sovereignty for her to be free. I heard a rumor that this story, which was written in the 13 or 1400s, it was hidden from the public, and the author was imprisoned since some androcentric and patriarchal people, perhaps men and women both, they were worried about the message, the symbolic meaning, and the impact this would have, especially for women. For now, I am curious for you to reflect on what did stand out to you, what thoughts came to mind, images, memories. And I want to challenge you to two things. So first, how can you be your own Sir Gawain? And say to yourself when making decisions, choices, taking actions, I put the choice in your hands. Whatever you choose, whatever you sense is best, that choice will be mine as well. We are in alignment. So to myself, I would say, Marissa, I put the choice in your own hands, whatever you choose, as your higher self, your intuition, your conscience. That choice will be mine as well. And second challenge is, how can you find one Sir Gawain in your life? One. More than one is great, but if you could have one person, doesn't have to be a male, it could be a female, who is present, thinks you're precious, and prioritizes what is best for you overall, that personal authority that you lack will be cultivated through their support, right? So you're your own Sir Gawain, and you also have Sir Gawins in your life to cultivate that personal authority. Imagine having to make a decision, big or small, and them saying to you, oh man, that's hard. You could do option A, you could do option B. I must put the choice in your hands. Whatever you choose, as your friend, as your partner, as your sister, as your mother, as your father, that choice will be mine as well. I had a memory pop up recently that serves this discussion that I want to end with. This was back in, I believe it was 7th grade. So 2000, 2001. And at that time, I went through puberty and developed into a beautiful and voluptuous young woman. I plan to talk about how traumatic puberty was in another episode, because literally overnight I had big boobs and a big ass, and I was not emotionally, physically, mentally prepared for the male gaze that came with that. So that'll be on another episode. At that time, my best friend, we'll call her Brittany, she often invited me to tag along on family outings, which happened a lot because her parents were divorced, her mom was remarried, dad was single, and both of her parents took turns showing us a good time. And it was great hanging out with her and either of her parents. One particular Saturday, Brittany invited me to go with her little sister, and her dad swimming and to get dinner. I was like, yes. So that's what we did. And I went with my voluptuous body. I remember swimming and playing some games in the water. Maybe we did a cannonball and basking in the sun. Maybe some pool noodles were there. And I remember Brittany's little sister, she was only a couple years younger than us, but still at the time that would have been like 7 or 8. And yeah, I think she had some dorky goggles on. And it was fun. It was fun. We were playing in the water. And when it was time to get out of the water, I remember swimming to the pool's edge, one of the pool's edge toward the end of the pool, not the stairs in the front. So the pool's edge, and grabbing the 2 poles and taking steps 1, 2, 3 of this pool ladder to get out. In media, there are Hollywood scenes, there are movies that objectify women as they get out of pools, like I was. But I'm not in a movie. I'm 12, maybe 13 years old. I'm not legal for anyone to do anything. And I'm not getting out of the pool in a sexual manner. I'm just getting out of the pool. Okay? But I remember climbing out, pulling myself up, and walking to grab my big beach towel. And Brittany's dad looked me up and down and up and down. And then he stared at me. It was only for a few brief moments, but I remember feeling so uncomfortable, sick, and ashamed as I wrapped one side of this big towel over my body and wrapped the other side to secure it and cover up my body. I felt safe in my towel and just remember standing there hoping it was bigger and that you couldn't see the figure of my body through it. Looking back, sensing how I was feeling at the time, I felt gross. I felt disgusted. And on some level, on a visceral level, I knew it was inappropriate. And I don't remember clearly what happened after that, but I don't remember taking a shower in the outside showers. I think I went inside to change. I ate dinner with them, maybe even spent the night at Brittany's house, but had this underlying disgust with me. I ask you, what's a 12-year-old girl growing up in a patriarchal society to do? What's a girl to do? I'm just a girl. What's a girl to do when she's seen women in her life, like my mother, endure awkward interactions with men? And I sensed in those interactions, my mom is not saying anything because she doesn't want to upset this guy. I've talked about a very vivid memory on former episodes, and I'm sure I'll share that again. Right? What's a girl to do when my teacher, a Black woman, I had her from 4th to 6th grade, and she was tough, she was inspirational. I felt challenged by her, and she would nod along and tolerate being talked down to by my white principal. I remember seeing it. What's a girl to do when she has little to no ability to validate her own thoughts and actions as good and true, since it hadn't developed, as others hadn't recognized and communicated the value of my ideas and contributions. So, not consciously, but likely sensing the authority my father had, I went to my dad. I remember telling him, Dad, when we went swimming, Brittany's dad looked at me in a way that made me uncomfortable. I don't remember. I don't think I told my dad, like, he looked at me in a sexual manner or he undressed me with his eyes. But it was implied that I was in my bathing suit and he looked at me in a way that was inappropriate. And you know what my dad said as a result of him being a man who has likely witnessed and mansplained before, who lives in a patriarchal society and has an androcentric view of things. Do you know what my dad said? He said, he advised, he told me, Marissa, if Brittany's dad made you feel uncomfortable, you should say something to him. And as I was writing this episode, it brought tears to my eyes to remember that. That poor little girl, living in a society where women are expected to be agreeable, passive, nice, right? Be nice, attractive objects, and we're discouraged from being overdramatic, oversensitive, and irrational, and assertive, or aggressive. I can't be aggressive. I can't go up to Brittany's dad and say, "Don't look at me like that, you perv." And I didn't go talk to him. I didn't go talk. And yeah, what am I supposed to say to my dad? Like, Dad, I don't think that's possible. Or Dad, I don't know how to do that. Or Dad, can we go together? Can you talk to him? Right? I wish I'd had some authority in that moment and was provided options. Well, first, like, Marissa, if you felt like it was inappropriate, it was probably inappropriate. I'm so sorry. That led you to feel uncomfortable. What do you sense you're needing to avoid feeling like that again? Do you want to take a break from going over to Brittany's? Do you want to just have her over more often? Do you want me to talk to him? Do you want both of us to go talk to him? But I left continuing to feel gross towards Brittany's dad and helpless with my father's androcentric suggestion. There was no way I could have gone up to him and said, the way you looked at me when I came out of the pool, the way you undressed me with your eyes, that was inappropriate. So, and what do you sense happen me the next time something inappropriate happened? I wonder if I stopped going up to my dad even to get his advice because I already knew what he was going to say. And I knew that I couldn't necessarily speak up to someone. And so now I'll just deal with being looked at like this. And not say anything. I don't think I've ever said anything. Actually, yeah, I do remember in my early 20s, but that was because I'd been really extremely uncomfortable, and I've shared about it with you guys before, just in extremely vulnerable situations with men, and with my literal back pushed into a corner and like pushing them off of me finally. But yeah, I had to learn that the hard way. So I have compassion for that little girl. I have compassion for my dad. There's mutual there is mutual suffering due to androcentrism. Right? Because then he has to hear about these situations I get in because I can't speak up. And he has to cope with that too. So it's just like this vicious cycle. So I want you to have compassion for yourself if you've ever felt weak or cowardly or helpless when you've received androcentric advice. When men have mansplained what you should do and it didn't resonate, help, or apply to the situation, I want you to have compassion for that, for you, and where you are at. This connection between codependency and our role as women is something I plan to talk about more and more. This week, I'd just like you to be more critical of how our patriarchal society, androcentric view of the world, and mansplaining compound your codependency and sense of loneliness, helplessness, and incompetence. It's not your fault. It's not you. It's not one size of advice fits all. It is not. It really is not. And you're not necessarily acting the way you think you're acting because you're weak. You may just need to start finding ways to develop your personal authority. So, your homework, 3 things. I want you to be more thoughtful and conscious about how androcentrism impacts how you perceive yourself. I want you to try to cultivate personal authority by being Sir Gawain to yourself and finding one Sir Gawain in your life. And third, I want you to play with a gynocentric view of the world. A gynocentric view is one centered on or concerned exclusively with women. taking a female, or specifically a feminist, point of view. Yes, we want to cultivate balance between androcentrism and gynocentrism, but we have spent years or decades in androcentrism, so let's just tilt the scales and tilt the spectrum and just hang out in gynocentrism. Gynocentric view of the world. Yeah, with work, with relationships, how you spend your time, trying to perceive it through one that's centered on or concerned exclusively with women. In the I'm Just a Girl song that I serenaded with you at the beginning, it has the following lyrics. Gwen Stefani sings, "Take this big ribbon off my eye. Take this pink ribbon off my eyes. I'm exposed, and it's no big surprise. Don't you think I know exactly where I stand? This world is forcing me to hold your hand." And as girls, as women, we are forced to hold the hands of others. So let's, I don't know, like keep holding hands, but try and hold your own hand in the hands of trusted others. That is episode 90. That is a wrap. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. If you haven't already, please rate, review, subscribe, and share. Share specifically this episode with someone you think needs to hear it. We continue to need more ratings on Spotify. Apple podcast reviews are also welcome, but Spotify, it's like, oh, I don't know. I guess you guys are all listening to me on Apple Podcasts, but if you're listening on Spotify, please add a 5-star review, 5 stars. And if you're wanting more hand-holding from me and my gynocentric view, you can get your copy of the Confiding Codependent, 30 Days of Journaling Prompts for a Less Codependent and More Conscious You. You can download the free Self-Validation Challenge. It's a 30-day guide to providing yourself with all the validation you seek. You can dive deeper into your codependency one-on-one with me, Marissa, by emailing marissa@codependent.com. You can sign up for the newsletter. There's a link in the show notes. And you can support the show via a one-time secure donation via PayPal. Thank you, and I will see you next week. Take care. Hey girl, it's Marissa again. I'm not like a regular podcaster, I'm a cool podcaster, right? Thank you for listening and staying till the end. You can find me on Instagram @therapywithmarissa. Email me, marissa@codependummy.com. Check out codependummy.com for more information on the show. And baby girl, a subscribe, rating, and review would be much appreciated. Till next time, I want you to remember, if you are feeling unseen, I see you. If you are feeling unheard, I hear you. And if you think that you don't matter, know that you matter to me. I want you to go out there so you can stop playing small and start taking up space, you dummy. And now, the disclaimer. Girl, this is not therapy and I am not your therapist. This podcast is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information in regards to the subject matter covered. It is given with the understanding that neither the host, publisher, or guests are rendering any legal, clinical, or other professional service. If you want or need a professional, please find one.